Those are the kinds of things that I
yeah.
have questions of.
Sorry, I'm distracted. Give me just a minute because I'm
That's
setting
fine.
up the stream for YouTube and the website since we're a little past.
Go ahead.
5:30
I'm
now.
sorry. Those are the kinds of things that I
Yeah. No, I'm gonna echo for a second. Sorry.
Hey guys, how are you?
Hey, Tori, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. There's a lot of emails. I couldn't find the right link, but I'm here now.
Give me just.
Sorry, we're up to 3 of us with Kate being on. I guess. There's no rush. Thank you.
Jessica, could you do me a favor and check the streaming on the website?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Guys,
Hi, Chelsea.
how's everyone? Hey, Tori.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. It was a fun time last weekend.
Was it? I'm so sorry to have missed that. Truly.
It was
That
same day.
too.
It was nice to go to a party. So
Yes,
I went to one last month.
that's awesome. And since it's in the neighborhood, I'm really sorry to have missed it. But I really appreciate you thinking of me and would really like to go if you decide to host one. So let me know.
We're thinking about it.
Okay.
I don't know when.
I had my first work networking event in person, which was like surreal. So
I know, and it's still like, I don't know what to do as far as distancing and masks, and I'm not sure. Nobody knows, and every place is different.
I totally hear you. Hi.
Hi. So we are streaming on YouTube and streaming on the website. So we are ready to start. Because the chair and vice chair are absent, Commissioner Ebert can chair the meeting provided there are no objections.
Good.
Okay, well, it's 5:36. Let us call ourselves to order, please. The June 10th, 2021 mission of PTR, meeting of PTRC. Let's go ahead and start with our call to order, please.
Kate Murphy. Can you hear us, Kate? Fred Wolf. Rob Eber.
Yes,
Aaron Gradinsky. Stephanie Dahl is absent. Tori Leviton.
Here,
Chelsea Scott.
Here.
And Kate, are you able to hear us yet?
while we're waiting for her to check in, the second agenda item.
I
roll
can
call.
hear you.
Oh,
There we go.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Kate. Roll
Yeah.
call of members. I don't know exactly what that is because is that what we've just done?
Yes.
Okay, attendance, all right. Audience participation, if there's anybody that had signed up.
There's no one signed up for audience participation. Mr. Tisdale will address the commission at the 75th anniversary event item.
Excellent. Welcome, Mr. Tisdale. It's a pleasure to have you here with us.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
Let's go ahead and move to our consent agenda, approval of minutes from our last meeting on May 13th, 2021. If anybody has any changes, please say so, and otherwise I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I move to approve the minutes from May 13th, 2021.
And second, anyone?
Second.
Motion and second to approve the minutes. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
I
Anybody opposed? None. Abstentions? None. The minutes are approved of our meeting from May 14th. May 13th, excuse me. That would be the one change that I guess I would make after the fact is it says Thursday, May 14th on one, and on our agenda, it says May 13th. So whichever one is right, we should have. Unfinished business. Emily, do we have any?
No.
Okay. Let us go ahead and jump ahead. New business, please. Elections of chairs and vice chairs is first on our list. I guess my only question is because we only have 4 of the 7 of us, do we want to move forward with that one, Emily, or do we want to wait, or can we wait?
If the commission prefers, you could vote to continue it. You do have a quorum, which is all that's necessary to hold the election, and this is the meeting that your rules of procedure specify you should hold the election, but it is ultimately up to the commission.
Do we know what Chair Dahl is interested in doing moving forward?
Yes,
Go ahead.
sorry. She sent an email saying that she would accept the position of chair if she was reconsidered.
Okay. Well, only because I think that sometimes, when you're not here, people pick on you, but she was here enough to say that she's willing. And then for vice chair, my understanding is that Fred is term limited anyway, so we have to pick a new vice chair.
That's correct.
Okay. Commissioners, how do you feel about going forward?
Well, I have a question. Do we know if anyone's interested in the vice chair position? Like maybe Roger, I don't know, is anyone else? Is that something we can just decide and nominate tonight?
Had either of our other absent people mentioned that they are interested in being vice chair? Well, we have Fred. I guess Commissioner Grudinsky is absent. Do we know his thoughts about being vice chair?
I do not.
Okay. All right. Well,
I remember him saying last time, we were in a meeting a long time ago in person that he didn't want the chair position if that was a consideration. I guess it's probably not that relevant, but I don't know. I don't know. It's a tough one.
Well, I know at one point a long time ago, just in chit chat, he mentioned that he was not interested in being, sort of in one of the leadership positions, but that was a long time ago, so I don't know. If you guys are okay going forward, or if any of the 3 of you are interested in becoming the vice chair, or absent that, I would jump back in if people wanted to. But I've been able to be the chair for a number of years, and so I want to make sure everybody has an opportunity before I would jump back in. So I'm
happy
comfortable
to,
going forward.
volunteer. I'm not necessarily expressing direct interest, but I'm happy to serve if chosen and volunteer for that position.
Okay. Well, guess the question that really is on the table for us is I'm comfortable moving ahead with electing chair and vice chair. If everybody else, unless hearing any objections, I would seek that we continue it, but otherwise, I'm comfortable going forward.
Me too.
Agreed.
Okay. Emily, I think we're okay with going forward. Do we start with chair first?
Yes.
Okay, well, I am interested in hearing any nominations for the office of Chair of PTRC for the upcoming term. Um, you know,
Stephanie Dahl, I would nominate Stephanie.
Okay. Any other nominations or interested at this point, or should we look for a second for
Yes, there-
nomination?
Sorry, the rules set out how to do it, which might be helpful.
I'm sorry.
So at the bottom of your memo, it's a nomination and a second, and then a vote. And then
Okay.
if that vote were to fail, you would go through that process
Okay.
again.
So we have a nomination for the chair of PTRC for the upcoming year of Stephanie Dahl. Looking for a second.
I second the nomination for Stephanie Dahl as chair.
All in favor of, or do we want to have any discussion at this point, or are you guys ready to call the question? Hearing no discussion, all in favor of re-electing Chair Dahl for another one-year term, please indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Of those here, it is unanimous that Chair Dahl will continue in her role. Let us turn our attention a little bit to the vice chair position at this point. I will open the floor for nomination of anybody for the vice chair position.
Kate, did you have any thoughts on that? You're the only one
No, I don't. I think you'd be a good one, Chelsea.
Thanks. I'm not sure how I feel about that because I still feel pretty new. I feel capable of it, but I just feel like I learn each meeting and with like a solid year under me before I were to be in that kind of a role. So I don't know. I mean, I certainly would love to revisit this in a year. But I know Commissioner Leviton, you may be interested, and I know Commissioner Eber, you've been in this role and you also would be willing to serve again. So I don't know, do you want to have a discussion about that? Is that allowed, Emily? You can have a conversation. I don't know if you each want to say something.
Let me make it clear. I am perfectly content not sitting in as vice chair. I'd rather have an opportunity for somebody else. I've been able to be both chair and I think before that I was vice chair. So I'm interested in letting everybody have an opportunity. If there was nobody who was interested at all, I would jump in. But at the same time, hearing that Commissioner Leviton would serve if asked, I don't think that I need to ask to be considered again. I'm perfectly happy letting lots of other people on the commission have opportunities.
For clarification, Commissioner Eber, what duties does a vice chair entail?
It's mostly, well, you fill in when the chair is not available, and either anything from attending meetings, which are not frequent, to running the meetings if the chair is not available to run meetings. I think that's really the bulk of what it is. Emily, when I sat in as vice chair, I think that, it was few and far between in terms of actual independent responsibilities.
You summed it up well.
And I kind of feel like Chelsea is that I'm also newer than most of the commission, and I don't, with those limited duties, I could serve well.
Sorry, you broke up a bit, Tori. Can you just repeat that second part?
Yeah, it said my internet blocked out.
Go ahead and repeat, Tori, if you would, what
That
you
I'm
said.
still newer and I'm not quite familiar with procedures, and would not feel great as a chair, but I feel after your description that if asked to serve, I could do the duties, perform those duties.
Okay.
So Kate, first I want to say thank you for mentioning, that you would consider me that. That's really an honor, and thank you. But I'd be happy to nominate you, Tori Leviton.
Oh, I
Unless-
appreciate that, but I have so much going on right now in my life. There's just no way I could take that role on top of it. So, but thank you as well.
I'll nominate-
Okay, well, it sounds to me as if Commissioner Scott, you were about to make a motion to nominate somebody or a nomination of somebody.
Yep.
Let's go ahead and move forward if you would.
Sure, I'll nominate Tori Leviton as the vice chair.
I will second the motion or nomination. Any discussion? My only comment to you, Commissioner Leviton, is there are lots of us who are more than willing to help you if you need anything. We'll make sure that you feel comfortable in everything that you need to do.
I appreciate it. And I'm really glad that this is so egalitarian, that it's everyone has their say and everyone has their vote. So really appreciate all the support.
Absolutely. We've had a nomination and a second. Let's go ahead. All in favor of electing Commissioner Leviton as our vice chair for the next year, please indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Since I don't like the concept of voting for myself, but if I were to abstain, it wouldn't happen. I will have to say aye. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, we are now set for the next year. Thank you. We're looking forward to having a good year coming up. Lots of things on our plates and in our agendas. So thank you for the two of you stepping up, and the rest of us will continue to be involved as well. So I believe it will be my last year on the commission. And I'm not sure where everybody else is on their respective terms, but I look forward to a busy year. So that'll be very good. Next on our agenda is 75th anniversary event. I'm not sure, Emily, if you want to do something first, or if you want me to invite Mr. Tisdale to step to his microphone in his what looks like a very nice living room, and he looks very comfortable.
We can turn it right over to Mr. Tisdale.
Okay, thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Commissioners. It's my privilege to be here. May it please the Commission. My name is Doug Tisdale. I have the privilege of serving as a member of the 75th Anniversary Committee, and of course, as your former mayor. So it's a delight for me to be here with you. First, I want to express thanks to Emily and to Pam and to Jessica, a marvelous, incredible staff who have done great work throughout the history of this committee, which has extended, as you know, beyond its intended duration for reasons that don't need expansion. Our co-chairs, Dino Maniatis and Tom Berry, are unavailable for this evening, and I volunteered to do this presentation. I know you have the packet. I know you have reviewed the materials in the packet, so I will not bore you with a complete recitation of the same, but I will just run through them. So if I may, Emily, we can go to the first slide for Exhibit A. First of all, as you can see, we have, because it's the 75th anniversary committee, but our 75th anniversary was last year, we have kind of de facto called us the 75th plus one ceremony and celebration committee. Next slide, please. We, of course, began in 1945. I love this old picture because it shows Temple Buell and Dave Little, our first mayor. So that's just a fun thing. Next slide, please. And we are obviously not at this point in 2020. We're in 2021, and we acknowledge that, and we've modified things a little because of that. Next slide. You see that we came up with a nice mission statement, which I believe, in fact, we have accomplished, and we hope to demonstrate to you this evening with the planned event. Next slide, please. The committee vision itself. It is a committee of dedicated citizens, which includes two former mayors, because Mayor Chrisman serves on the committee with us as well. Next slide. This is what this is all about tonight. We are here tonight because it is our mission to communicate, collaborate, and cooperate with the City Council and with the Parks, Trails, and Recreation Committee. It is critical that we keep you involved in this process and allow you as much involvement as you would care to demonstrate or simply to provide your verbal support of the actions we're taking. Our 75th anniversary celebration itself is planned to be at the newly developed, redesigned, restored, and amplified John Meade Park, commemorating our 75 years plus one of incorporation with, in fact, the dedication of a 25-year time capsule. What that means is the intention is we would open it up again after 25 years. Actually, technically, it will be after 24 years, but who's counting at this point? The celebration itself is to be at John Meade Park on August the 28th. It is truly a family event. It is for all ages to welcome the community to enjoy John Meade Park, to reunite with friends, and to celebrate the city's history. We, as you recall, from our original master plan and is carried through all of the master plans, enjoy what we describe as a semi-rural environment here in Cherry Hills Village. That's a big part of what we celebrate. We will dedicate this time capsule at that time with a plaque that will outline essentially what's in that time capsule vault. And it will contain items of significance from 2020 through 2021. They will all be Lysol wiped, so we hope that we are not preserving the COVID virus for 25 years from now. Then at the 100th anniversary of Cherry Hills Village, it would be our intention to open that. Next slide, please. So our theme is Cherry Hills Village Summer Chic Barbecue. Naturally, of course, it would be chic. The featured activities will include a welcome table. We will have name tags. We know we're all villagers. We know there's only about 6,000 of us in the village, but it's impossible for everyone to know the names of all the 6,000. I know many of those people. There are times when, as an age-advantaged citizen, I cannot recall those names. So name tags will be useful, and we will be happy with that. Then there'll be a welcome card and information relative to the celebration. The corral will be in the village center parking lot with a large tent and high-top tables, encouraging people to mix and mingle and go on around. And there will be a bar serving wine, beer, and non-alcoholic beverages. We are necessarily limiting the alcohol, the wine, and the beer to the parking area. And then something that I'm particularly interested in, because some of you may remember, may even have been at the dedication of the Ellen Hutto Commons, which occurred while I was mayor, when I negotiated the donation from the Hutto family and the Niederman family, the Hutto Commons. We will have music in the Hutto Commons, which is the reason that commons was developed. Then the time capsule ceremony and dedication will take place, and we will have food and beverage by way of some food trucks, ice cream, of course, because we'll be in the dog days of summer at that point, and various refreshment stations. Next slide, please. For the time capsule itself, here is a description of some of the things that we have planned for that. I hope you were able to read, save, and enjoy the Villager newspaper that we had published on which was the date? November 26th edition of the Villager newspaper contained the insert of, I think, 16 pages celebrating the Cherry Hills Village 75th anniversary. So that was a great, important insert into the the Villager newspaper, and we have ample copies available for those of you who would like to receive it if you neglected to save that edition of the Villager. We will preserve that along with other important elements of history and of current events in the 75th time capsule, along with the city approved logo for that. Next slide, please. The schedule itself is that the event will go from 3 until 7, but the actual time for doing a programmatic period will be at 4 o'clock with the dedication by Mayor Stewart at the City Hall, where the time capsule will be housed. The exact location, as I recall, is still being specifically designated, and will advise as that confirms. But it's a 3 to 7 o'clock event on the 28th. Obviously, we have a rain date, and that would be the next day. We hope that we don't have to do that, but everyone is invited. Next slide, please. We have submitted and had approved by council the celebration budget. It works out to approximately $13,400. We believe that we did everything that we could to modify the plans that we originally had. I won't go through all the detail, but we went from a lot of fancy stuff down to a very simple village celebration, something in which we can all participate and hopefully that we all will enjoy. And so with that, going to the last slide, we simply show you some of our visual idea board for this. We are eager to have the advice from PTRC, any comments from PTRC, and your general reactions. We have a meeting of the committee tomorrow morning, and I am charged with the responsibility of communicating back to the committee any reactions from the commission. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you, sir.
Roger, you're muted.
Sorry about that. I appreciate that. Thank you, Doug. Appreciate your willingness to lead us through there. Sounds like it's been kind of a fun activity to plan this, cancel it, replan it, keep it going. We greatly appreciate the efforts of everybody on behalf of the committee. It's been a wonderful opportunity to make some village camaraderie and have an opportunity to celebrate a lot of good years and a lot of interesting things happening in the village over a lot of time. So I can tell you that my dad came in 1962 when he bought property with an intent to build on it. And so I got a chance to be raised in the village, and it's awfully interesting to see all the things that are going on and what the village is becoming as we move forward. So this will be a fun activity. Commissioners, please go ahead and give Mr. Tisdale any thoughts or comments on the different slides. Are these to be used in future presentations, or are these just information at this point?
They would be available, Mr. Chairman, to the City Council, to yourselves, anyone in the public who would care to see them. I think our best effort to date of describing the specific plans for this summer's event. Needless to say, of course, details may change as we approach the event.
Excellent. Commissioners, go ahead and give Mr. Tisdale some thoughts and feedback.
Mr. Tisdale, I was wondering what initiative you were doing for signage and what initiatives you're doing for finding musicians.
Thank you very much for the question. Appreciate that. We do have, by virtue of the fact that Dino and Tom, our co-chairs, are very involved in event production. They have a number of contacts concerning musicians. We would like very much, to the extent that we can, to find local talent. I mean, village talent, people from Cherry Hills Village, for providing the music. As for signage, I think we would look to the city for having the information sign on Quincy contain the information about the event. We will, of course, be publicizing the event by way of the village crier, the village website, the villager newspaper, and other social media.
Thank you for that. I wish I could volunteer to provide music for part of it, but of all the days of the year, I have one wedding this year and it is exactly on that day. So I hope you can find other musicians, but keep me in mind for other events. I think you'll be able to find someone else.
We
Some
know none would be so good as you, Commissioner. That goes without saying, but we'll do our best to stumble along.
Thank you for your answers.
Commissioner Scott, any thoughts?
Yeah, so first of all, I really appreciate the presentation. It was not only informative, but super fun and really well delivered. So thank you so much. I appreciate that. I work in the world of finance, and making topics exciting that aren't generally exciting can be a big challenge, and I can appreciate that. So thank you so much. I want to say the chic part speaks right to me. I absolutely love that name. I think from a marketing standpoint, that is really in line with the village and just adds to the fun tone and kind of setting for the event. I really appreciate that it's kid friendly too, representing kind of the population with younger kids in the village. So I can also appreciate that, although I'd love to see it extend past 7 and, you know, switch over to a babysitter to get to meet more people and have less people dragging on my tails. But yes, that is really, I really appreciate that. In terms of the photos you provided, I mean, it looks incredible. I don't know if you've identified the food trucks, but at Arapahoe Tennis this summer, we've increased the number of food trucks coming in, and there are a couple that have been really exceptional, but it looks like you have Mountain Crust Pizza and a couple different vendors already determined, but I'd be happy to provide some names if that's at all helpful. I'm super sad Tori can't play. I think that would have been really awesome to see maybe a piano drop into that new Allen Hutto space. But no, overall, I mean, this looks great. I'm not totally clear on what you have committed in terms of under the budget, what you have identified and not, but if nothing's been identified, I certainly can just send a few names, particularly that are related directly to the village for some of these, the needs for the event.
Excellent. We would definitely appreciate that. I cannot tell you how many specifically have been at least approached at this point. I know none have yet been contracted with concerning the engagement, but I know some have been approached. So any input that you have, that's part of the collaboration we're looking for from PTRC. So I thank you, Commissioner.
No problem with that. My last comment and thought is, so the time capsule dedication part that will be happening, I just would ask, is there any way to incorporate a little bit of the history of the village in there? I think that could be really fascinating for residents.
No, yeah, that is exactly the point behind the time capsule. It will go back as far as we can and
Great.
have historic photographs. You may have noticed in the village center, if you've had the opportunity, in the city hall now, if you've had the opportunity to be there, that we have a photo display that we have gone through, carefully curated and mounted, and we have some rotating pictures we'll be putting in there. But yes, history is a big part of it. So no, it's not just what happened 2020, 21. It goes back to the 1945 time frame and takes all the information from Temple Buell and Mayor Dave Little forward.
Well, and then so to add on to that, and I really appreciate you saying that, thank you, is also, we talk a lot, obviously, about the parks and the trails in this particular commission. And so I don't know if there can be any emphasis or just a little bit of a highlight onto our trail system. That is a topic that we address here and, you know, on the commission. And it would just be, I think, really illuminating for the community to understand, again, the value, not that they don't, I'm not implying they don't, but just really highlight the value of the trails and the interconnectivity and the special benefit it provides the residents. That's just kind of a pitch specifically for PTRC though, because again, something that I don't know everybody really understands, and what goes into it and how they're used, if they're, what types of vehicles can actually cross those paths and things like that. So just, I don't know, that would just be a thought there. And then just one logistical comment, logistics comment. If there's any way to have some kind of kid activity going on while the time capsule dedication is occurring, that might be helpful in the crowd and for those that really want to pay attention. Now, I don't think it's absolutely necessary, and I don't know what kind of kid attendance you'll have, but I know in certain other events I've attended, whenever there's a kid activity in play somewhere else, it can just be helpful. So that's it.
Relative to your last question, yes, it is definitely our plan to have the kids' activities continue during the actual time capsule dedication. So yes, that will be done. And concerning Parks and Trails, trust me, that's a huge focus of what we're doing. Obviously, of course, we'll have the trail map in there, but we'll have other information. And some of you may recall that when I was mayor, I sponsored the mayor's competition for student-produced videos celebrating the beauty, history, legacy, and legacy of the Highline Canal Trail. And those winning videos still rotate on Channel 22 from time to time. And it is my absolute intention to make sure that we have a thumb drive in the time capsule that would contain those student-produced videos celebrating the Highline Canal Trail. So yes, Parks and Trails is a very important part of what we're seeking to do in the time capsule.
Great. And I did just think of one last thing, and this is really it. So how open are you to different ideas on the entertainment? And here's what I mean. So there's a teacher at the elementary school, CHVE, that independently teaches a lot of students singing. And she does an incredible job with choirs. And it just crossed my mind to maybe send her an email and just ask her if maybe a few kids in the village would like to get together and do like a small performance. I'm not sure if that's appropriate though.
Yes, Commissioner, please do. We have some, and there's even sort of one surprise that the co-chairs are seeking to bring together with a well-known recording artist who might be able to participate. But no, the goal in the first instance, and the reason we were talking to that recording artist is that person lives in the village. The point here is to look for village-based talent. So yes, please do send that email. Please feel free to copy Emily, who will then copy the committee members to know that outreach is being done. But yes, I would encourage that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Murphy, any thoughts for Mr. Tisdale? While we're waiting for her, I wanted to jump in and I can start. Kate, when you're ready, please feel free to just jump in. Until she gets here, I will jump in with a couple thoughts that I have. I share the enthusiasm for historic photos. I think that that's a wonderful thing. It would be really interesting to see if we can have on tripods or something like that, a number of old photos located throughout the corral or something like that, that shows some of that history and some of what made the beginnings of what we all enjoy now. In that same vein, maybe a couple of tripods that go along with what Commissioner Scott was just mentioning about by far and away what makes us unique and special compared to an awful lot of villages is our open space plan. It oftentimes is the number one thing that people talk about Cherry Hills Village and what makes it enjoyable to live here. So any kind of emphasis on not just the canal, but the bridle trails and getting people to get out and make use of them, I think is a great idea. Kate, are you with us at this point? I don't want to.
Yes, I can hear you. I don't want to interrupt you. I can wait for you to finish.
Okay. The other comment that I follow is sharing Commissioner Scott's enthusiasm for the history in written word as well. I strongly suggest we include High on Country, the book that was written specifically about the history of Cherry Hills Village, be not only placed within the time capsule, but also be available for purchase or distribution within the village, because I think while all of us as members of PTRC were given that in our orientation packet, many members of the village do not know about this book, and I think it's a absolutely fabulous book.
You just stole my exact words.
Oh, I apologize.
No, but that was exactly what I was going to contribute. So
Yes.
Additionally, I would suggest one of the things that I think is kind of interesting about Cherry Hills is the fact that we still have a few or many old timers still located here in the village. I would love to have a podium or an opportunity for storytelling, I guess I would call it. I think that many people today do not realize exactly the roots of the village, and having some of those old timers talk about what it was like when they first came here. And Quincy was an unpaved road. If there's anybody that goes back to the very beginning, I don't know if there are any original residents. But there are many people who can still remember the first 25 years of the village, if not the last 25 years, obviously. Many people can. But an opportunity for storytelling and or even honoring some of our senior family members, or at mentioning who they might be that were the original pioneers of Cherry Hills Village. I know that with every list, there's always a concern about people not being able to qualify or feeling less than because they're not on a list. That is not my intention. My intention is to try and let people understand a little bit of the many people who may be at the celebration, some of whom are great resources for that historical background of the village. So I think that that would be an interesting content feature. In addition to that, my only thought was, to the extent that the slides are going to be used, I did have a couple comments on the slides themselves. And that is, if we could flip back to the slides, Emily, and that is the slide that's entitled 75th Anniversary Ceremony and Celebration. And it says the anniversary committee is excited to host.
Rob, if you have edits on the actual slides, I would ask that you send them to me to distribute to the 75th committee, just because we're going to run out of having a quorum at 6:30. So I want to try and make sure we get through all our business items if we can.
Yes, that's fine. The only other substantive comment that I have for you, Mr. Tisdale, is I personally have never been a fan of all of the signs being distributed through the village announcing whether it's movie night or any other activity. And I would urge you to make use of non-littering visual clutter to our right-of-ways with things, and get the notice out to the local population by other means besides reliance on those signs. I'll close by saying thank you to you. Thank you to the other chairs. Thank you to the entire committee. It's going to be a great event, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. May I just respond to the one comment, and that is that the only sign that we're talking about and the only printed matter we're talking about is the one sign outside the city hall. Nothing else. There would be no further hard copy material aside from the village crier and the villager newspaper, of course. The rest would be electronic, digital in terms of communication. And relative to your thought that we have an opportunity for storytelling, funny you should mention, that was actually one of the big parts of the original plan for a gala that we had hoped to host either at the Cherry Hills Country Club till we found out it was being reconstructed, and then we were going to move it to St. Mary's Academy. But since we've changed this whole thing, that's gone. But we were actually going to invite all those people to be there, and I was going to do a sort of Phil Donahue, going around from person to person and giving them the mic and eliciting comments from them and kind of prodding them along. So we may still have something like that for the event, but yes, we understand your thought and we absolutely join in it. Thank you.
Thank you. With that said, I believe that our next agenda item is proposed changes to Chapter 11, Article 3 regarding city property, parks, rights of way. Emily, I'll turn this over to you if I can, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Tisdale. We will talk at 9 a.m. tomorrow for the 75th meeting. So our next item is changes to the municipal code relating to parks and trails. What we're asking PTRC to do is approve these changes in concept, and then we will work with the city attorney to draft code language that will actually go to city council. So these are changes that both have come up because the park has physically changed in one case, and because city council was discussing them. So the three changes that are proposed are changing section 11-370 to allow waiting, specifically in the waiting area at John Mead Park and within Little Dry Creek and Woody Hollow. We get event requests where kids are, we're doing Kids in the Creek, kids are waiting in that area, and it only makes sense to allow that in a safe way while still prohibiting, entering other bodies of water within the village or swimming in other ponds or in other spaces in the village. The second change is really a very small one to section 11-390. It's just removing the word table from that section. And it's really just because there are plenty of times within our parks and trails that somebody might be setting up a table, whether it's the land preserve for an event, the Highline Canal Conservancy, so they can set up a table on the canal and do outreach. And they don't need to acquire a permit through the city permitting process for that. So we're trying to do some cleanup on that section to make it more realistic in terms of what actually needs to happen or actually needs to require a permit. The last change is the big one that was suggested by City Council. Council at a recent study session discussed whether to change the parks and trail hours to dawn to dusk rather than our current rule, which is 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. Those hours are a holdover from when South Suburban managed our parks and trails, and it has been that way in the code since that time. So council discussed it. They didn't make an official recommendation, but their discussion was revolving around making that change from dawn to dusk rather than having it go so late at night. So those are the three changes that we're proposing. And I have a recommended motion in your memo. Again, the motion is pretty soft language, like to allow waiting within the splash area, to allow tables to be set up, and to change the park and trail hours, which I'm sure you'll want to discuss. And then we'll work with the attorney to draft specific code language, and that's what will go to City Council later this summer. And with that, I'll open it up for questions and discussion.
Thank you very much, Emily. I think the easiest way may be to attack these one at a time, if that is okay.
Sure.
Let's go ahead first and start with swimming and wading. I will note that the code as it currently reads is to enter, it's unlawful to swim or wade in otherwise bodily to enter the water of any lake or canal within any park within the city. And I guess my only question to you is, where we have set up the wading area in Mead Park, does it qualify as being a lake or canal?
No, but part of this cleanup is the ponds, it's not well defined, right? We have gulches, we have streams, we have ponds. So we'll also, along with this change, be cleaning this language up to make sure it comprehensively defines waters within the village.
Well, and that's where I will leave it to the rest of the commissioners to weigh in as well, but my only comment to you is, let's say I owned a pond in my backyard, Commissioner Leviton, I believe you do have a pond in your backyard. Are you telling that that is a water?
Publicly,
village that-
publicly owned, public,
Okay,
not private. If you're on private property, you can do,
You
Okay,
don't
and
go
just-
in that lake, but I don't have any issues with other people who would want to try it out. That's at their own risk.
well, other people also have village lakes or ponds or whatever that they may want to. So I just want to clarify what it is that we're talking about is that we are, I assume we're keeping the within any park within the city language. I do
Yes.
note that that does not include that there appears not to be any prohibition to be in the Highline Canal because the
It-
Highline Canal is not a park.
it should also include the High Line. So
Well, I
this
guess-
is okay, go ahead.
I guess my question to you is, I want to make it clear what it is that we are allowing swimming to take place in and
No, nowhere,
no public spaces,
not for swimming.
waiting,
Waiting in Little Dry Creek in Woody Hollow and the splash area at John Mead Park.
only.
Correct.
It's on page 3 of the packet. It's that first bullet.
Right. But my guess, my
Quite
only
narrow.
question to you is I personally am okay with the Highline Canal. I'm not okay limiting it if that's one of our intentions. We need to make it clear because that's a bigger substantive change of the code. If we're just trying to allow, and I was the one who raised this many years ago, that when we talked about doing the park, that we'd have to change the code to allow people to go into this waiting area that we were going to spend money and time to put together. So allowing people to wade and making a change that allows people to wade right into there, that's one thing. Amending the code to add the canal, which I think right now is an excluded area.
We're not adding the canal.
Well, right now, it only says within any park. So right now, I could go swimming in the canal,
Not according to Denver Water.
maybe not
Who-
according to
who
Denver
owns
Water,
that? Who owns that?
except for the part where the Quincy Farms is.
That's correct.
So I could swim because it's private property. Well, it's not private property anymore. Now it's village property. But I guess my point is that right now it's not a park. That the city-owned piece of the Highline Canal is not prohibited by the city code to swim in. And if we are going to add the canal, I think that is a discussion for another time and another evening. Right now, you want to add the swimming waiting areas within these 3 places. I'm absolutely fine with that. Other
Two-
commissioners?
Two questions really quickly. Are we gonna lose, we're gonna lose our voting ability in about 4 minutes, is that right?
I believe so. Commissioner Murphy has to leave at 6:30.
Okay, so, and we're just talking about waiting and splash area. The only question I have on these 3 topics are any liability on the city if anything happened to somebody while waiting? in these areas?
I will defer that. If you want to talk to the city attorney about specific liability, I would defer to her. Council talked about it at length when they installed the splash area. So they're well aware of it. The city has a certain amount of qualified immunity. So,
Okay, that's really all I need to know. I don't need to go further than that.
Okay.
Okay, should we make the motions, Commissioner Eber? What are your thoughts? Because we're not gonna be able.
Let's go, well, I wanted to address one at a time, but maybe one motion for all of them. Let's real quickly, anybody have thoughts on waiting? Hearing none, parking and camping, striking the word table. Any discussion? Hours of observance, thoughts, comments?
I do not like these hours of observance. The sun goes down in December around 4 o'clock. And if I want to take a walk on a trail, I can't go at 5:30 because it's 30 minutes after dusk. I don't like how that's worded. I prefer 6 a.m. to 11 p.m., but I like the other 2 options. I like the other 2 ones. This one I do not like changing the hours to dusk. If I want to take a walk around Christmas and it's closed at 5:30 before dinner, that's to me unreasonable. Discussions?
Agreed. I agree.
Commissioner Scott,
I agree with Tori. So I would say, I would go approve both the first two and deny the side of the third.
Commissioner Murphy, any thoughts on the three of them?
I agree with the wording on that as well. And
Okay.
I am going to stay on. I have a dinner commitment, but I didn't realize I was going to affect your voting. So I'm going to be late for the dinner and stay on for 15 more minutes.
I appreciate
So,
that. We should be
yeah.
done in 5, hopefully.
Okay, I just don't want to, I don't want you guys to rush. Just keep going.
I appreciate that. I will weigh in and tell you that I already alerted Emily to this, that I have a number of changes that are, in addition to these 3 that we are looking at, that if we are going to amend this article of this chapter, that I would like to send it to council one time with a number of different areas. So with that said, Emily thought, and I have no problem with doing it, is that we address these 3 tonight, and then next month, in the interim, I will work with Emily to bring to us all a packet of a number of different changes to think about on the additional ones besides these 3. That said, I am fine with your thoughts on the first 2, and I share your thoughts with the third one. I absolutely hate the dawn to dusk. I think that there are many nighttime activities that can take place, even from the idea of night stargazing in the parks. That I know that the police are concerned about security and shenanigans, but I do think that there are ways that we can still allow activities to go on in the park well after dusk. And if I'm training for a marathon and I have to be at the office at 7 a.m., I might want to go running at 4:30 in the morning. So I do think that there are many activities that we should be able to accomplish in our parks off the hours of dawn to dusk. I have always phrased it that it's not the hours, it's more the activity and the noise that's associated with them. So while the police were talking about shenanigans, I was thinking more in terms of noise and disturbance to adjacent neighbors. And that's where we already have our code provisions on noise and allowable noise. So with that said, I think that those of us who are attending tonight are unanimous that we're okay with the first 2 proposed changes, and the third proposed change on hours of observance we are not in favor of, but I will allow somebody to craft a motion. We did have a recommended motion that needs to be adjusted if we are only going to allow the first 2 and vote down the third, but I will leave it to somebody to craft, and if nobody wants to, I will craft a motion.
If I could just make a recommendation that would make things a lot simpler and really clear for city council. If you could make the motion that's there and then just stop after the second. And then you can make a separate motion that you do not recommend city council adopt changes to the park and trail hours. So that way you have a motion in favor of these and then a separate motion against, rather than trying to throw a negative in there somewhere, just to make it a little clearer.
That's fine. Anybody want to go ahead and take a shot at it?
I move to recommend that City Council adopts changes to Chapter 11, Article 3 of the Cherry Hills Village Municipal Code to allow waiting within the splash area at John Mead Park and in Little Dry Creek within Woody Hollow Park, and to allow tables to be set up in parks and trails without a permit.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion to adopt changes to Chapter 2, Article 3 to allow waiting within the splash area at John Mead Park and in Little Dry Creek within Woody Hollow Park, and to allow tables to be set up in parks, trails without a permit, please indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries.
Commissioner Eber, I hate to interrupt. Can you let me know who seconded that motion? I apologize.
I believe it was
Chelsea?
Commissioner
Commissioner
Scott.
Scott,
Thank you.
Okay, with respect to the hours of observance, we need to have a motion in response to the proposed change on that.
and if I could jump in again, I'm sorry not to be, if you want to be the most clear for council, you might want to recommend keeping or maintaining the existing hours of 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. So that it's very clear what your preference is, not just not dawn to dusk, but
Sure. In the idea of expediency, let me jump in and say I would move to recommend to City Council that the proposed changes to Chapter 11, Article 3 of the Cherry Hills Village Code to change the park and trails hours from dawn to dusk be rejected, and that the park hours continue to be in accordance with the current provision of 11.3.110 that indicates the park hours are 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. for open activity use and use.
perfect.
Second,
Motion has been made and seconded by Commissioner Leviton. All in favor of the motion to keep the park hours as currently written in 11.3.110, allowing use from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m., please indicate by saying aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. As I mentioned, there are a number of other ones that I will meet with Emily so that maybe we can make one global change. I anticipate that our July meeting, we will go over whatever Emily thinks is an appropriate change, bring it to the commission, and then have that suggested change, if any, go with the ones that we have made tonight, and then be forwarded on to City Council for their action after we meet at our July meeting.
So
Correct,
if
Emily?
I can, no, I'm sorry, I'm trying to jump in and should have jumped in faster. So typically PTRC doesn't meet in July because our meeting falls the week of 4th of July. And typically it's very hard to get a quorum. So if the commission's not opposed, Rob, it sounded like a lot of the changes that you have weren't were more administrative cleanup than they were significant changes to the way that parks and trails are accessed right now or are used or maintained. So given that, I think the next step is to meet with staff and probably with Chair Dahl when she's available to go through those changes. And if the commission's comfortable, if they're smaller administrative changes, we can get an idea from the commissioners who are present that those changes, if they're just administrative cleanup, could be made without it coming back to PTRC. Because based on the timeline for council and some of the council meetings that we have to schedule coming up, or the items we need to schedule on those council meetings, it will likely delay this item for council if we need to bring it back to PTRC.
I don't have a problem. I think some of mine are administrative and cleanup. I think others of them are substantive. Do you want to allow people to use a solar oven in the parks? That's considered cooking. Substantive change to me, but maybe administrative to everybody else. I have a few that are like that. I think many of them are within the idea of administrative cleanup. My only suggestion would be that we, even if it delays a little bit going to council, I would rather do it right and do it once than, I don't know what the fire is to take the time if we need to bring it back, but let's wait and see when we meet. I'll let you be the judge on whether or not some of these are big enough that we want to bring them back to the entire commission or whether they fall within administrative cleanup.
I'll let the chair be the judge.
Fair enough.
If she's there. And it's not just, so this is part of a comprehensive, there are other changes to chapter 11, right-of-way permitting sections and the construction excavation standards that are happening. So we are trying to only do it once. We are trying to bundle it together. So in the future, if you have a ton of significant changes, if you can let us know ahead of the meeting, that's really helpful for us to be able to do some legwork ahead of time and address them with the commission fully informed.
Fair. With that, I believe that next on our agenda, I've lost my sheet here real quick, is committee, is reports. Commissioner Scott, if you had talked with Chair Dahl, do you know whether she has anything to report or that she wants to report?
Did not mention anything, so that would be no to my knowledge.
Okay.
So I'm sort of-
Commissioner Murphy? Any reports? Commissioner Scott, go ahead and jump in if you have anything on your agenda.
Nope.
Commissioner Leviton?
The one important thing, and that is the property of 4001 East Quincy Avenue is for sale. I've already talked to Emily about it. I've reached out to the mayor, but I have not talked to Mr. Stewart directly about it. But I think it is very, very strategic land that is in the best interest of all the residents of the city to somehow have some part of access to it. It does abut Three Pond Park. I have not reached out to the sellers. I don't know if there's any potential buyers. It broke a record for metro area listing at $25 million. So I don't know who has deep pockets like that. And I don't know if we're going to be able to make any headway on that, or if it's just private and going to stay private. If it is, however, subdivided, the city can actually jump in and claim a part of that. Sorry, Emily, I've not gone over that section of the statute. I did, however, speak to a neighbor who said there was a similar property on Monroe Street that the city had an interest in about 10 years ago, where it was actually brought to city council to discuss the possibility of easements or purchase of this property on Monroe. They're not even done with the property. They're just pre-selling it. I'm not sure if there's any potential buyers, but I have my eye on it. It's across the street from me. And in my opinion, it is in our interests and in the city's best interest to, I guess, make sure that it preserves our semi-rural qualities as well as preserves our values for open spaces.
Excellent, thank you. Commissioner Murphy, I don't know if you came back on and want to jump in on anything, otherwise I'll give my report. Okay. I have been approached by former Commissioner Josh DiCarlo, who a number of years ago, to those of you who are newer, we spent a lot of time considering the Highline Canal crossings at Colorado Boulevard and Quincy and how to make them safer. We'd love them to be safe, but I think we all are sort of dealing with safer at this point. With the fact that during COVID, a lot more people were on the trails, there were a lot more, I believe, I'm told, closer calls, as well as with the opening of the underpass under Hampton and Colorado Boulevard, there will be additional people even now that may not be familiar with those two places. The question was brought back to me of whether or not we can work with the police department and even up the game further with respect to those crossings. Question was made about whether or not they can be hard stop signs placed there. at each of those two places. And if not, what other alternatives may be available to us now before we do have, unfortunately, have an adverse event that we wish that we had gotten in front of. So, you know, I would like to initiate discussions with the police force. I would like to have all of us think of ways that we may be able to increase those intersections safety so that we have continued safety for all of the users. I do think that people understand it, but it is unbelievable how many people do not stop for people at those crossings. And, you know, I think we've been lucky. So, Emily, is there a specific way to put that as an agenda item or a chase item that we can try and consider moving forward?
Well, let me address some of it first. So we are going to get additional signage at both of those crossings this summer as part of the Highline Canal signing package. So it'll be more clear that you're crossing the Highline Canal because of the signage for drivers. And then the pedestrians or bikers using the Highline are also going to get a better signage that shows you that you're about to cross a road and what road you're actually crossing. So hopefully those signs too for drivers will make those crossings even more visible. We do have the flashing pedestrian lights at both. We've explored, we've talked about mid-block, about stop signs on either side in the past. The problem is that they are mid-block, they're not at a cross street. So they end up, my understanding based on traffic studies is that they end up being less safe because drivers aren't expecting a stop sign and then the pedestrians are counting on the stop sign. So people end up in the street, and then if a driver doesn't stop, you're obviously in a horrible situation. So we're getting signage that will hopefully help. Are there other ideas besides the stop signs and signage that you would want to address?
I don't think that I have any in particular. I was more reiterating the comment of former Commissioner DiCarlo and his thoughts about trying to amp it up. And, you know, he mentioned bumps or dips, but we kind of looked at those the first time around and found them not to be really prudent choices for us. So no, I don't have any magic suggestions at this point, but the comment was because we're going to get so many more people because of the underpasses that I do think that we need to make sure we're doing the right thing at those places. So as long, you know, I think he raised it as a concern without an idea of exactly what he wants to see done. So I challenge our fellow commissioners, all of us, to, if we come up with a great idea, let's bring it up and let's see if we can do something about it.
Sounds good.
Additionally, I would like to, like I do frequently, I'd like to thank Emily. I'd like to thank Pamela. I'd like to thank Jeff. I'd like to thank everybody within the city administration. You guys work very, 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 very hard on our behalf, and we appreciate it. And the place wouldn't run without you, and it wouldn't look nearly as good without all of you. So thank you very, very much. Third thing I'd like to mention, I've mentioned once before, and that is that I truly believe, and I have asked while I'm out walking, that our on-street trail system get a formal recognition as a part of the trail system and be put on our maps. I cannot tell you how many people are using on-street trails, at least in my area. I have to believe that it's in other areas as well. And I would like to, with that, have a formal recognition of their status and signage that reflects there is on-street trails, and people need to drive slowly, because at least in my area, people drive way, way, way too fast, and it endangers the users on the on-street trails. If we're going to put people on on-street trails and not let people know that they're going to be there, we're going to have a bad accident and we can avoid it. So I think that it impacts other parts of the village with on-street trails. And maybe we need to have a formal discussion of what can and should be on-street trails, because I know in the past we have talked about the fact that they were sort of inartfully chosen and selected as additional opportunities, but through no real process. But our on-street trails deserve formal recognition. I don't know if that can become an agenda item, or if we can put it on our list to make a formal recommendation or not to council after we talk about it, maybe as an agenda item. Emily, anything that we can do to maybe ramp that one up?
I would ask you to discuss that with the chair.
Very good. Other than that, I want to thank everybody. Summer is here. Obviously, the early rains and cold temperatures have yielded to hot and dry. So get out on the trails, enjoy yourselves, be careful, but have fun. And that's everything that I have to report. One more time, Commissioner Murphy, anything? Okay. Emily, on behalf of staff, or Pamela on behalf of staff?
Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, sorry. I don't know.
Oh.
I'm unmuted, but it doesn't, I have to push *6 every time.
Okay.
I'm
Sorry.
still very concerned about I'm going to call it a homeless camp, but what's going to be the proposal for the RV homeless camp park, whatever you want to call it, on the corner of Hampton and Colorado Boulevard. I have a number of friends that are very active involved in the one that's going in Park Hill. And it just really concerns me with the underpass and the how homeless people tend to like to sleep down below, under tunnels, and I'm really concerned about this. So I think it's going to be a huge potential problem in the area of our beautiful new underpass for the Highline Canal. So.
Okay.
And I realize it's not Cherry Hills Village, but it's close enough, and I just don't understand how this passed. Who approved this, or there was never. I guess it's City of Denver, but there was never any discussion. It just is just on the platform, and it's going to happen, and it's going to be here before we know it. The one in Park Hill is going up this week on June 15th. The tent city. So
Kate, I agree with you fully, and I guess my question would be to either to Emily or Pamela. Is there any way that we can request a meeting with decision makers on that, or is there anything we can do?
It's not. Sorry, I'm trying to pull the email up. My understanding of the process is that it's through the Denver zoning administrator, and they have specific criteria that they use in making that decision. And basically, if it meets, if the site application meets the criteria, they just use a set of criteria, and it's a yes or no based on that checklist. I might be able to provide some contact information. Okay, here we go. I can send PTRC contact information for the Denver zoning administrator if you would like to contact them, but that's the extent of our involvement in the process.
I'd be totally happy to contact them and copy you, Kate, and anyone else that may feel the same way, and just see what they say, and if there's any process for appeal, any process to protest, or any process to just have a conversation, I would certainly be happy to send out that message.
I think another way is during the public comment period of City Council. Obviously, this is not only a parks issue, to the extent that it's a safety issue or perceived to be a safety issue, I think that it is something that is ripe for a comment to city council, that city council may want to interact and send to its Denver people concerns or the desire to be involved in the process as well.
I agree. I don't know the timeline, so I don't know when this decision is in effect or when this is going to take place and then when city council meets, but I'd coordinate that timing. And in case if you want to, I'd be happy to collaborate with you and craft something where we approach city council if we need to attend their meeting and during the public comment section. I mean, I'd certainly be more than happy to take some action on this one.
I do
Thank
want to
you.
let the commission know that city council is aware of this process and is aware of what's going on. It's definitely on their radar. So
It's
obviously,
just
oh, go ahead.
No, it's just so close to the village, and they already had somebody die in another tent city that was down closer to the downtown area.
So just
And,
to clarify, what the church is applying for is not tents. The church is applying for a temporary emergency permit that allows people to park their vehicles in their
And
parking
sleep
lot.
in their vehicles. And
Yeah,
sleep
yes.
in their vehicles.
Yes,
Yeah.
but
No, I mean, I realize it's not a tent city, but when you allow something as such, it's you're opening up Pandora box, and I'm just adamantly opposed to this, and I think that this is way too close to our village, and I think we all need to be on hyper alert on this one. So, and especially with the underpass and the Highline Canal, I think it's going to be a potential huge problem.
Totally
I
agree.
think the take home message for PTRC purposes is that we are asking the police department for Cherry Hills Village to be involved with whatever may happen as a result of opening the new underpasses, to be aware of it, to plan
Mhm.
for it. I don't know if that means that we increase patrols, what it is that we do. But at the same time, to me, that seems to be the most direct contact to PTRC. The rest of the issues are very much more geared towards the entire village, and I guess we're talking about safety and issues of the village.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
I agree with that too, but I also would say, the police part is the reactive part, but, just on the side, us being kind of active, kind of action oriented members of the community, I'd be happy to start this process with you and Kate, if you wanted, or again, anybody else that's interested, because I do agree there is a direct correlation, although it is not really PTRC directly related. It is within, like, as Kate said, such a close proximity, it's relevant, I think.
Thank you, Chelsea.
thank you, Commissioner Murphy. I appreciate it. I believe Emily's going to tell us a couple of really good things as part of her staff report, and then we will move to adjourn. Emily?
I'm trying to collect myself. Sorry. Give me a minute. I don't want to inject my personal feelings into this too much, but I just want to say that the police department is well aware of, safety issues within the village, and absolutely on top of the underpass opening and the changes that that's going to bring. I don't know what this is, a Denver process that the church is going through. And I would ask commissioners just on a personal level to think about what other alternatives there are right now in our area, not in Cherry Hills, in our larger area, for safe places for people to go, because that's what the church is trying to accomplish. And I apologize. Those are my personal statements, not representative of Cherry Hills, but it's very frustrating to hear the human element missing from that conversation.
I'm sorry to step in, but I do appreciate it. The church is trying to be generous and help people who need it, and to have some compassion for people who have no more than a vehicle, which is even more than some other people. And if the police department is vigilant and this church is responsible, I think it's a kind thing to do to offer to have this permit, and let law enforcement worry about any potential issues, because they're great and they'll stay on top of it on both sides of the border. So thanks for sharing that perspective, Ms. Black.
And to keep on with the police bit, I have good news for PTRC about our police department. They have acquired their own e-bike, and they have been using it a ton in the past 2 weeks to patrol the parks and trails. So the chief has been out on it even in the last couple days. So they now are much more easily able to access different parts of the parks and trail system faster. So I think that that's going to be an excellent addition to vehicle and foot patrols on our parks and trails. So that's definitely helpful. Other reports, council is going to discuss restarting the master plan process on Tuesday at their meeting. So hopefully I'll have an update for PTRC about that. I do have a note I have Chair Dahl's report.
Oh,
And she asked if there are suggestions for agenda items, if they could be emailed to staff and to her ahead of the meeting, the week before the meeting, to ensure there's time to prepare. And then the commissioners, we can provide the information to commissioners so that they can be prepared to actually discuss the suggestion at the meeting. In terms of speeding on the canal, which we've talked about in the past, we did put our speed sensors out on the canal. They only sort of worked. They're unfortunately not sensitive enough to pick up some bikes and pedestrians. So we picked up some bikes, but not enough of a sample to be able to determine like number of users, what the average speed is, that kind of thing. So we can look into other options, but we tried. Having a police officer out on an e-bike is kind of even a better case scenario than just getting some data. So we'll let them do their thing. And my last question is, so as I said before, we typically don't have PTRC meet in July because typically it's very hard to get a quorum. It's the week of 4th of July. So our next meeting would be August 12th in person, provided there aren't changes that come up for something really crucial that we need to get it done in July. So Commissioner Ebert, I'm well aware, we'll try and set a meeting with you as quickly as we can to go through your possible changes to Chapter 11. But for now, commissioners, if we can plan for our next meeting to be August 12th, and that will be here in City Hall for the first time in ages. And that's all I have.
there's one item that you have about June 26th.
Oh, yes. Well, as you're all very aware, our grand opening for the park will be June 26th from 9 a.m. to noon. So I just specifically threw the date on there Actually less for the commissioners, but for anybody else that might download the packet, so they would see that too.
My only question is, looking ahead, are we doing movie night this year?
Yes, I had sent an email out to the commission asking for movie opinions. We got one back. So if you do have opinions on that list of movies, please send me an email. But the date for movie night is August 21st. So the week before the 75th anniversary event.
Excellent. Thank you. Anybody have anything else before we adjourn?
What time is that at, Emily?
John, meet or movie night?
Movie night.
We typically started at like 6:30 or 7, I think, and then we start the movie once it gets dark.
Okay.
I just have one thing. I wanted to respond to your comments, Emily, because I'm just want to put a few clarifiers in there. So I completely understand and really appreciate your response there, and just wanted to kind of explain where I'm coming from on this one. So one, I just want to say for the record, I guess, that I am an active member of the Cherry Hills Community Church, and I do participate in a mentorship program for people without jobs to help them actually find the professional or be able to present in an interview and help them with their skill set. And I don't want it to come across that my thoughts there have anything to do with an insensitivity to the way our world is. What I want to say is that I'm also, not only has it occurred to me twice now, but also I'm, as part of a community member, I know of many people that have had issues with theft and robbery and break-ins. Many, and I say, I don't need to list them, but to myself personally, my car was stolen out of my driveway, as well as my mail was stolen. The stimulus check and all those things, along with who knows what other mail was stolen. And so that's really the angle I'm coming from, and that I'm concerned with is that, there's vulnerabilities at all levels in society, and some of them are that, perception can be, of stuff can also make somebody vulnerable. And so I just think that that's the panache of living in this village, is that name alone can be perceived in a certain way, whether true or not. And so I am legitimately just concerned on the safety side and not insensitive to the service that the church is trying to provide. And I do understand that, and I do understand it's a Denver concern. So I just wanted to state that because it is a complicated issue. So, if it were to be something that Cherry Hills were to participate in, it is something I definitely am contemplating and thinking of. There are a few recent instances that I know of, both Old Cherry Hills, Devonshire, as well as Buell All, at least two of those neighborhoods being relatively close to that, that have occurred, that have been, on the break-in side. So just things to, kind of balance out that conversation.
Okay. I believe we have accomplished our task for tonight, Thursday, June the 10th, 2021. I will entertain a motion to adjourn. I want to thank everybody for participating. I see that Mr. Tisdale is still hanging in there with us, whether he is still there. Thank you very much for participating and providing us the information on the anniversary event. We look forward to it greatly. Lively discussion, and I look forward to our next. If we do not get together in July, we will be in the hot days of August. Please enjoy yourselves in between and be safe. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
And knowing I have a second, we will be adjourned.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Y'all
Thank you.
take care.
Good night.